and welcome back to my channel where it is December and we are tracking yet another month of ovulation. However, this month is obviously a bit different. It's Christmas. I have definitely not been looking after myself. I've been eating lots of chocolate and gluten and dairy. Literally every healthy practice that I usually have in place is gone, out of the window, and I've just been enjoying myself. But obviously having Pcos and endometriosis, this can play havoc with my hormones, and I am fully aware of this. But I thought I would track my ovulation anyway and see what happens this month. If you missed my last video, in November I did ovulate and I went for a blood test, and this was confirmed by my doctor through a progesterone test, which was amazing. But this month was a bit weird. I started to get the cervical mucus a little bit earlier than expected, so I decided to start tracking a little bit earlier just in case that I ovulated earlier in this cycle. And this can be quite common with women who've had endometriosis and had surgery. Sometimes their hormones then alter and they can sort of change their cycle. So I was kind of prepared for this or aware of it, so I thought I would just start tracking a little bit earlier in this cycle to see what happens. Another thing that I should mention is that I also went for my COVID booster about a week ago, and the first 2 jabs that I had, I was completely fine. This time I had my booster and I had a different batch, and I was so ill, really poorly. I had a fever, I felt really bunged up, I had a headache, earache, etc. and I felt off for at least 4 days, and this obviously had an impact on my temperature because I had a high temperature because I had a fever. And from then my temperature has literally been all over the place and has made it really difficult with ovulation tracking. So this month has been a little bit tricky with the COVID jab, drinking alcohol, which also affects your temperature, going to bed at different times, not eating my usual healthy diet. I have found it a little bit trickier to track this month, but what I will do is I will insert the footage that I've got from the last few days so you can see me tracking my ovulation, and then we'll come back and we'll have a little bit of a chat about it. To November, where I started to track my ovulation on day 18, because with a 35-day cycle I typically ovulate on day 23, and that is exactly what happened. This here is from last month, so as you can see here we've got cycle day 18 where it was low, and then as we creeped up to cycle day 23 is where I got my peak, and you can see there it was 0.83, and then my LH dropped on cycle day 24 and 25, and that's when I stopped tracking because I had already ovulated. Whereas this month I started tracking it on cycle day 16 because I noticed a lot of cervical mucus. So cycle day 17 it was still low, 18 it was still low, and then cycle day 19 I got a peak of 0.9, which is actually higher than it was in November. Then this morning I did a test again and it dropped down to 0.28. And what also doesn't add up is typically when you've ovulated your temperature stays high, and then it stays high then all the way up until your period, and if you're pregnant it will stay high. But for me, my temperature yesterday was 36.6, and then this morning it dropped down to 36.3, which is what my temperature is on an average day with nothing weird going on. So that isn't something that I would typically see. If I had ovulated, my temperature would normally stay high. So as you can imagine, I am a little bit confused. I did get a peak of 0.9. It looks like I've ovulated, but because my temperature didn't stay high, I'm wondering whether, even though I had a surge in LH, whether maybe all the components weren't there and aligned for me to actually ovulate this month. So is a little bit of a tricky one. I'm not quite sure what's happened here. Annoyingly, I can't just like go and get another progesterone test in a week because doctors don't like doing tests. So what I've decided to do is to continue tracking, because according to my app, my actual ovulation date is supposed to be New Year's Eve. So it could be that my body is trying to ovulate here and failed, and then it'll try again on New Year's Eve. So I'm going to continue to track every single day up until New Year's Eve, see what happens, and yeah, that will give me a better picture of what's going on here, because I'm just a little bit confused. So I'm going to continue to take my temperature, do the little LH strips every morning for the next few days. Today is actually the 29th of December, so we're not that far away from New Year's Eve. And then I will be able to tell what's going on, whether I've ovulated, and then obviously we'll see whether I get a period in January. Today is 6 days post ovulation, and I thought I would jump on here and just wrap up this video. As I was tracking throughout December, it was so tricky to confirm whether I'd actually ovulated. Obviously I got that spike in LH, but my temperature was all over the place for a number of reasons. So I just decided to carry on tracking to see what happened. And lo and behold, I got a spike in temperature, and it's continued to rise and stay high throughout December. So I thought I'd just quickly show you my chart. So hopefully you can see that there. You can see this orange line is my LH strips, and I got a positive ovulation here. My temperature did drop, but then it continued to rise, and then it stayed up here at 36.7, 36.8, and it's continued to be like that for the last few days. So yeah, day 21 it was 36.4, then it went to 36.5, and then it jumped all the way up to 36.7, and then it's pretty much altered between 36.7 and 36.8 all the way up until today. And as I say, I am now 6 days post ovulation, so I've got another 6 days to go until my period is due. So yeah, it just goes to show it can be a little bit tricky, but stick with it and hopefully you'll be able to figure out whether you have ovulated. And now that I've got that spike in temperature and it stayed up there, that does confirm my ovulation, which was really surprising given the month that I've had with, as I said, like my COVID jab, sleep being up the wall, my diet not being optimal, and yeah, I just really didn't think that I was going to ovulate this month, but I have, which is amazing. So now I just have to wait until my period, and I'm already starting to get symptoms of my period anyway. I woke up this morning with a big breakout, like my boobs are sore, I've had some cramping, so my period is definitely on its way. And it's just been great to see another month of ovulating, and obviously this month it was a little bit earlier, which was interesting. So I would like to see what happens next cycle, whether that is earlier again or whether that's my new ovulation window. I just don't know. So stay tuned for that to see what next ovulation looks like. But otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this video and you found it useful, especially if you, like me, are on your TCC journey and you're trying to wrap your head around this whole ovulation thing. I'm hoping that these videos are going to be useful for you. If it is, then don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.